So welcome everyone. Welcome from the B Skill team. We have all three of us today. We have Gilles with us today as well. This is week 3 classroom session. Uh, this session is on procurement planning. As all of you are going through module 5 this week, which is on procurement. Uh, Procurement planning is one of the key elements of the entire procurement process. And in fact, it is one of the very first elements or the process that needs to be done when you begin your procurement process. So we will focus on this procurement planning concept in this session. Also, we'll look at a few more critical points related to procurement and the entire process of purchasing medical commodities. So I will hand it over to Gilles, who will take us through the key points that has been happening in the course this week or in the last couple of weeks. Gilles, over to you.
Thank you, Sanjay. Good morning for some of us. Good afternoon, good evening. It's nice to be with you again. Sorry for missing the course last week. I've had some last-minute issues that I had to solve, some personal issues. So I'm happy to be back today, and I'm happy also to take us through what happened this week. Particularly that for those same issues, I was not as involved as I would have liked to be. So this week, if we look at the list of those who are actually following the course according to the calendar, which is planned. So we have, I think, if I'm not wrong, is it 16 or 18 people who are engaged, in a timely manner, following step by step all the courses. Which is a good representation of the overall profile of countries which are engaged in the course. So that's very good. If we look at the leaderboard, the top 10 people who are in the leaderboard is also very encouraging. I think we are very happy to see people getting all those gems. But beyond the gems itself, it reflects a real engagement in the course. So I hope that this is reflecting the value that you see in this content. Really, also we would really value also to have a feedback from you, particularly really those who are following up the timeline and following the courses as planned. That would be very great if we can hear from you all on your experience. We've had some good engagement. Okay, so
sorry.
And we've had some good engagement to respond to the questions. I hope that you also all value the feedback that you get from everyone about, like in this case for IPSA. How who is the central actor, who is the central provider in the country, how procurement is defined. I mean, all those elements I think are part of the peer learning, and it's very good to have this broad vision. So thank you for all those who participated. We've had, just to be completely transparent, you've all rated your experience. So I think you have 60% of the participants who say that it's very good, that the learning objectives are met, and you are looking for more engagement and more case studies and being able to engage more. So that's good. Another part is saying it's excellent. All learning objectives were met. Fully grasp, the process of the quantification. So that's also a good. All this is very good. I mean, it's all positive. And then you have one person who found it average, and saying that the learning objectives were not met. So for us, it's very important to learn about that also, so that we can fine tune and try to adapt. So anything that would help us to better understand what we can do better would be great, and we'll act on that. Yes, we've had some good discussion. One about the central stakeholders. So I think you've seen the summary, which has been done by Andrea. Basically, I mean, if you look at it, I think the conclusion on all those two discussions is that indeed we are on the same boat. That although there may be some little discrepancies, little differences between how things are being managed from one country to the other, at the end of the day, the process, the flow, the communication are going to be the same. So whether it is for the medical equipment selection, whether it is for the central stakeholder and how information is flowed, how the process is being done, we see a lot of similarities. I think it's encouraging for everyone working in this sector. Maybe it's also an opportunity for trying to anticipate, working in other countries where possible, or trying to enhance maybe the work you're doing in this country. So really, all this is good. I don't know if there are some specific feedback that someone would like to do on the discussions, on some of the discussions that you've taken part of, or that you followed up. Any specific comment that someone would like to do at this stage? Please feel free to tell us if you think that there are too many topics, or if you don't have time to engage, or if you would have liked to engage more but you were not able to do it. All this is very important. Or on a specific subject which you feel could have been more digged into it, deep digged into it.
Yeah, while someone is thinking to speak, so one more thing on these discussion summaries which we have posted today, please do take time to read so that you understand why these discussions are created in this way, and why the name is "Are we on the same boat?" Now, one of the key points that we also wanted to get across through this course to everyone who's working in health supply chains, I mean, no matter which country you represent, is that when it comes to public sector, it's more or less almost all of us who are in developing countries in the southern hemisphere. Our challenges are quite similar, and I was seeing some of the discussions where uh, uh, a couple of participants, I don't remember the names now, you were also calling out this fact that it's quite similar, the challenges in your countries and the processes in your countries to the processes that they see in their countries. So this is what also we want to highlight, that the names of organizations might be different. You may call logistics, you may call it supply chain in your countries, you may call it by different names. But if you try to understand it and dig deeper, almost 90% of the things are quite similar in terms of how the processes are, in terms of what the challenges are. And so if one country can make their supply chain better, then which means that other countries can also do it. And that's the reason why we also wanted to learn from each other, because if one can do it, then the other can also do it. And that's the reason why we called it that are we on the same boat? Is it the same boat on which all of us are having this journey towards supply chain sustainability for that matter? So if anyone wants to speak on their experiences in the last few weeks and the discussions that they are partaking in, it would be good to hear.
Okay. It's not forced, so I think we will proceed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would like to say something. We have learned how supplies are being taken care of, or how it has been handled in other countries, and we have equally learned. It has also given us an insight on how supply chain is being managed at the level of our country, Cameroon, in the public sector. And also it has given us another insight to better understand how it is being taken care of in the CBC health services where we work. We've also had experiences on how this supply chain system for health are also having their other names in the various countries where we are interacting with: Haiti, Kenya, Ethiopia, and the rest, and the names of the various bodies who actually takes care of supply chains. We have also learned on how the decentralized systems as per country by country throughout the course up to this level. It has been a wonderful time. I really appreciate collective learning. And out of what I have said, I will also like to maybe bring call the indulgence of Sanjay, Gilles, and Andrea, if they could actually see into the situation of Team Blue. Because if you look at it in the past, Team Red has taken the lead. We appreciate them so much for that. They have been up to the task and they have defeated us twice. We are happy. But on the other side, we would like to maybe tell our course instructors that if they can actually dig out those who have not had a gem up to this level of the course, I believe it will give Team Blue at least a gateway to actually be a leader, maybe in the weeks ahead. So if they can see into that, it will also help us at least to come up too strong in order to move ahead to the end of the course, which I'm sure by the end of this month we'll be rounding up. So that is what I have to say in as much as our experience and our feeling as Team Blue is concerned. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You will see that there is a plan at the end about that. So we'll discuss that at the end of the course.
It's coming soon in today's session.
One point, and thank you for raising it and showing your will on that. So before we address this particular point, which is of high importance, and just on the comment on this, and as you know, we've said it at the beginning, of the course. This is the first time we are trying this team approach, so you're kind of, testing it with us. So thank you for that, and it's good that we get open feedback. But we also understand that we want to win, so it's not only a joke. Anyway, the assignment of this week. So this week the assignment is a group assignment. It's a group discussion within each team. Again, it's an optional assignment. It will not stop. It will not prevent any access or any completion of the course, but there will be a bonus of 100 gems. Each member will participate into the discussion and completes the assignment. So the assignment is to hold group discussion. If somebody wants to help facilitating it, please, you can send your name to have a kind of facilitating role for the group discussion. And there are two options in terms of dates for when you can actually organize your discussion, either as Team Blue or Team Red. There will be specific group on Zoom where you will be able to engage with each other.
Yeah. So what we want to hear from you right now. So these are two options of these dates and times. Whichever you choose. So I'm going to launch a poll in a few seconds. So whichever you choose, majority people. So we will organize that Zoom session on that day and time. And like Gilles mentioned, there will be two groups visible as you join the Zoom link on that particular day. One will be of Team Red, the other will be of Team Blue. And I believe all of you know which teams you belong to. So as you will join that call, you can go to your respective groups, discuss your assignments, and then once your discussion is over in an hour or so, then everyone will go back prepare the responses to your assignments in the PowerPoint as per the guidelines of the assignment, and then you submit your own assignment on the platform. Okay, but only those learners will be awarded who will participate in the discussion online and then completes the assignment. I mean, if you complete an assignment by yourself without participating online, then you would not receive the points. Okay, so this is designed in this way to promote discussions, and so that you also get to know each other as well. Okay, now we've heard in the chat that 10 would like to lead Team Blue session. It's very great to hear from 10. So any volunteer from Team Red, that would be great to hear as well. I'm launching the poll now so that we get to know the uh, time that you decide. So the poll should be on your screen now. Okay, it seems majority are inclined towards Saturday, which is well and good. Okay, Saturday is great. Now I'm ending the poll because majority votes have already been casted to Saturday. So you should see on your screen. So 5th June, Saturday 2 to 3 p.m. GMT, which means about 2 hours before from now. So if in your country, for example, if uh, whatever it's 6 p.m. or something in some place, then it would be 4 p.m. on Saturday. Okay. So I will send. So we will send invites and guidelines to everyone again. Just to recap, only those participants who participate in the discussion online and then submit their assignments will receive these bonus points. If you don't participate in the discussion, then you will not receive these gems. And again, it's an optional assignment. So if someone chooses not to participate, that's also fine. You will be able to carry forward with the course in the next week as well. Okay. Gilles, any other point?
Yeah, maybe one suggestion here also to see, depending on the percentage of people from each team who come participate, we could add also a bonus to the team.
Yeah, why not? If you are now looking at some additional points for Team Blue.
Yeah, taking into consideration, not taking just taking on the basis of those who have participated right from the start. So we would kind of not take into consideration people who are not on track.
Let's do this. So eventually, that team will win. Where more number of members will participate and submit the assignment. So it has to be both things.
More number in percentage, not in actual percentage to those who are actually following the list we showed at the beginning about people.
No, not in that sense. What I'm saying is, so see, anyways, let's say there were 25 people participants to begin with. Right now, let's say 18 or 16 of them who are following the course, in its current calendar. What I'm saying is, it doesn't matter, how many people are there. What I'm saying is, out of both the teams, the number of people, that team will win where more number of people participated in the online session and submitted their assignment. So it doesn't matter how many people are there in each team or who is doing the course or not. Okay, but because it's the same thing that you mentioned. Even if, let's say, 7 people from Team Blue participated in the online discussion, and 2 of them they did not submit their assignment, it doesn't work. They have to fulfill the entire end of the spectrum, right?
The devil is in the details,
Exactly, devil is in the details.
So, but we have to be careful that Team Blue should not be, affected by the fact that there are members actually running in Team Blue. I'm sure all Team Blue members who are on the platform right now would agree with me that they should not be, affected twice for the same issues, that they have less contributors. Which means
so then all the people. Okay, Vanjiru has a concern. Okay, let us come to that. So let's see. So all the people who are currently, following the calendar, we can take the percentage from there. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. So we'll get back to you on these rules as well. Gilles is trying to now put Team Blue on the map as well. So we'll go with the flow with that. All right. So Vanjiru will take note of her concern. It would be nice if you can find some time to join, but if someone else wants to lead, that would be great. Any which ways, on Saturday, I will be there to assist both the teams. And in case of any issues, I can support both the teams as well. So moving on, let's go to the technical session now. So in today's session, we are going to learn a bit more about procurement planning, and we will also show you a sample procurement plan template in Excel, which you already have received, but we will give you more details on how to use that template. Okay. And again, if you have any questions, raise your hand. We will let you speak verbally, or you can also put your clarifications, questions on the chat as well. Okay. So to begin with, there are many people who tend to confuse between a supply plan and a procurement plan. They are slightly two different things, but I want to first understand from you as to what is your impression of how these two things are linked. So there are two responses that we generally get whenever we try to understand the relationship between these two documents. Some people say supply plan is a part of procurement plan. Others say that supply plan is a prerequisite to develop the procurement plan. I'm going to launch a very quick poll to understand from you what do you think about this, and then we will discuss more onto the relationship between supply plans and procurement plans. So quickly, if you let us know what you think about the relationship between these two plans. Right. So we are getting the votes. I request everyone to vote quickly. All right. So majority of the votes have come. Let me share the results. So 71%, that is about 10 people think that it's a supply plan is a prerequisite to develop a procurement plan, while 4 of them think supply plan is a part of procurement plan. Okay. Now, it was a trick question actually, because both options are correct. Okay. If we look at an integrated supply chain, then supply plan is actually part of a procurement plan. But we know that sometimes in our public sectors, supply chains are not always integrated. Our processes are sometimes, segregated by departments. They are segregated by people who are doing them, and it's not always a very seamless flow. In that case, you actually cannot develop a procurement plan unless you have received a supply plan. Now, what's the slight difference between these two terms? If you remember in module 4, when we were doing quantification, supply plan was the last step of quantification. So once you have forecasted your commodity needs, from your forecasted commodity needs, you prepare a supply plan. Supply plan tells you how much of those forecasted commodity that you have figured out needs to be purchased, and needs to be purchased, or rather needs are required when. So for example, if you're preparing a supply plan for a central warehouse, your supply plan will tell you when you required X number of commodities that you have forecasted. Okay. And it will also tell you after the central warehouse, where does it need to go and when. Okay. So that's what your supply plan is telling you. In the supply plan, along with your forecasted commodities, you bring in different assumptions like what is the stock on hand currently available in your warehouse or your clinics or your stores, what is the stock in pipeline which is already there. You know, you also take into account wastages and expiries so that you know how much eventually are you going to be needing in the next period. That's your supply plan. Once you prepare this supply plan, and you, let's say this is an annual quantification exercise, once you've prepared your supply plans and you send it over to, let's say, your procurement departments or tender management departments, what they are going to be doing with that supply plan is to find out when should they raise the tenders or the purchase orders so that the supplies that you need on a specific date arrive by that specific date. Okay. And that is that extension of supply plan which we are going to discuss today, which is the procurement plan. Okay, so it includes all the various procurement steps as well. Okay, so that's the slight difference, and both options are correct. It's a part, supply plan is a part of procurement plan. You can actually combine supply plan with the procurement plan in one sheet as well. And there are these different softwares who do that as well. And in a different scenario where, you know, different teams are working on, you know, you have a quantification team, you have a procurement team, then the procurement team can't really move on with their procurement exercise until unless they have received this supply plan from the quantification team. Okay, there are a few things on the chat, let me look at that. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so let's begin this discussion with the procurement cycle. Okay, so I'm sure all of you who are going through module 5, you have seen this graphic, but let me rephrase it so that we can set a context for today's discussion. So we develop a procurement plan. Based on the plan, we prepare and disseminate the bids. Okay, bids is what you know, the tenders that you're going to be floating for the suppliers. Based on the bids that you receive, you identify the suppliers, you review their bids, the bids that the suppliers have submitted. You review them for quality of the products and the price of those products. Okay, based on you know, in different countries, you know, they either look at only price. You know, I'm sure you are familiar with the term L1. So lowest price bids mostly wins. But these days we're also working on a review mechanism which is called QCBS. You know, quality and cost based. Uh, uh, Forgetting what is S, but which means that you look at both quality and cost. So you just don't look at cost, because sometimes lower cost may mean poor quality as well. So what we do is we look at the quality first. From there we make a first level of selection, and then whoever are qualified in terms of quality, from that lot you look at the lowest price. Okay, so that's how you can also do your bid evaluations. Once you select your suppliers, you establish your contracts with those suppliers. It can be a one-off contract, it can be a framework agreement. Now, for example, I believe UNFPA, they would do framework contracts and then would raise purchase orders in that period of the framework agreement. In some countries, for example, I believe in Ethiopia, you do both. You do single contracts as well, and lately you have also started to do framework contracts as well, which is a longer duration of contract, where you don't need to do the contracting stage again and again. You do it once and then you raise the purchase orders. And based on the purchase orders, the manufacturers or suppliers will manufacture the products, and then the products will start to arrive at the central warehouse, or, you know, if it is a local manufacturer, then they may also supply directly to your facilities or hospitals or wherever the products are needed. So this is the overall procurement process, and then there's a monitoring process as well, which we are not talking about here, but we will discuss in the procurement plan as well. Now, what we are discussing today out of this entire process is the first step, which is the procurement planning. And the reason why we are talking about planning and we're giving a lot of emphasis on planning is because procurement is a very long process, and more so when it is conducted annually. I was reading some responses in the discussions, and there was a question about procurement lead times, and the lead times, they sometimes are calculated, and sometimes they're very long, like 6 months, 12 months. In Sri Lanka, Chamini says it was about 400 days, and that's a very long lead time. And one of the reasons, possibly, maybe long processes within the procurement process, and some issues with bidding procedures and whatever. Okay, and that's the reason that if you don't plan your procurement, after a while you will be lost, where you are, because one, there are a lot of commodities. I mean, at a central level they may be buying 800 to 1000 commodities. At an SKU level it may be even higher. If you are a regional authority, you may be buying 400 to 500 products. If you're a hospital, you may be buying this much products. If you are a facility who's buying yourself, buying directly, you may be buying 2 to 300 products. And if you don't prepare a plan in that purchase period, eventually you're going to be lost. And then what happens? You are not sure when your supplies are going to come. You are not sure if the supplies which have come in the right quantity. You are not sure when to pay the supplier. You are not sure how to manage the quality of the supplies which are coming. And I'm sure you have heard of all these things which I'm stating. And these things happen because because there was no plan to begin with. And so, if you are confusing supply plan with the procurement plan, then think again. Do you really have a procurement plan in your organization? Or do you really create procurement plans in your organizations? Or if you're a procurement officer, do you really create procurement plans when you begin a procurement process? Because that's very important to know. So moving on, I'm sure you have also seen this graphic. This is to show you what I've just said, that there are a lot of processes. You create an ITB or an RFQ, you advertise, you receive bids, you respond to queries, you compile those bids, you do technical evaluation, there are committees involved, you prepare reports, then you also conduct quality assurance activities, there may be inspections, there may be testing, then you may do price evaluation, then there are award notifications, then you develop the contracts, then based on the contracts you develop purchase orders, then you monitor those contracts, and then you process payments once the supply starts to arrive. In between all these steps, there may be 100 other steps related to approvals, related to documentation, related to coordination. And just to say that, it's a very long process. Procurement in itself is a very long process, and possibly if you look at the overall supply lead time, from once you have created your supply plans to the time when the product first arrives, in your warehouse or in your health center, the biggest chunk of time, which is, in that entire lead time, the biggest chunk of time is taken by the procurement process. Okay, along with, of course, the another big chunk of time is when the manufacturer is actually manufacturing the products. Okay, but procurement is still, it takes a big chunk of this entire lead time. Okay, and that's why we also have another term which we call a procurement lead time. So what is the time period between when the procurement team has received the supply plan until they have raised the purchase order? What is that time period? If we can calculate that time period, then we know how good or weak the procurement process is of the organization or of the country. Okay. This is okay now. So you may be asking, so what elements are there in a procurement plan? How is it different to a supply plan? In a procurement plan is more of a process. What is the process that we're taking, and it's more like a project management plan. We have product segments, and then we will have list of products under each segment. Then we need to know who's managing each of those product segments, you know who's taking responsibility of procurement of those products. What is the process that you are employing? Because some products may be available locally. You may go for direct local RFQs or maybe ITBs depending on your budget allocation. There may be some products where you need to do international bidding. On top of that, there may be some products where you can only do bidding amongst the pool of pre-qualified suppliers. For example, HIV program. There is a mandate if you're using global funds money, and most countries here are using global funds money to purchase HIV/AIDS products. And then there is a mandate that you need to purchase it from WHO pre-qualified suppliers. Now, of course, now the rules have changed. Global Fund is doing the procurement themselves, and you are just raising your orders just like you do on Amazon. So I don't know if you have heard of Vambo.org. If some people have worked with Global Fund, worked in Global Fund programs. So that's what is happening now. Countries are not buying; they're just raising orders, and Global Fund is managing procurement as well. And then, of course, what are the timelines of this entire process? When should the award be ready? When should the purchase orders be raised? Okay, so timelines are important in a procurement plan. We can also have risks and mitigation strategies in a procurement plan. Now, for example, when it is a plan just for HIV program where there are very few pre-qualified supplier, there is a risk that there may be lack of competition. So how do you make sure that you get good prices? And then if you are doing it for, I mean, I'm just taking these examples which are on the screen. If you are doing procurement for essential medicines, then you may need to do your own pre-qualification, which may take its own time. So then how do you reduce that time? Okay, so there are certain risks that you need to take, keep in mind and find the mitigation strategies for them. So moving on, this is something we use in procurement. We call it backward calculation. What it means is that we start with the date when we want the supplies to be available at a central warehouse or a district store or a hospital. So that is our target date. From there, we start to do the backward calculation to understand when should we begin our procurement cycle. Okay, so that's what we call the backward calculation. So which means that if we don't begin the procurement cycle at a specific date, then whatever supply plans that we created, they are going to fail. There will be delays, and the process will not be able to, or that organization will not be able to provide those commodities in time to those district facilities or hospitals or health centers as they had indicated in their supply plans. Okay, so that's why it's important to use procurement plans so that you are ahead. You're proactively managing your timelines. And for example, if you know that in advance, you know that something is getting delayed, then you also try to find some ad hoc measures to that. So that's why it's important to create a plan so that when you are managing a plan, if you see there are some delays going to happen or there are some risks, you can proactively manage it. The other point is that if there are going to be delays and you identify those delays in time, you should also communicate those delays to those district warehouses or hospitals or health centers. If you communicate too late, then they are in a situation where they can't do anything else. But if you communicate in time, they may also try to find a solution to that issue by themselves which also helps you, which also buys you time while you are procuring supplies for the, let's say, at a national level or at a regional level. So procurement plan also helps you improve this communication cycle as well. I'll just stop at this point, and if there are any questions in all the points that I've just mentioned, please put them in the chat, or you can also speak. Yeah. So if anyone wants to ask a question or wants to speak, this is the time. You can do that very quickly. Otherwise, we'll move on to the next section.
Maybe just one point to add in terms of communication. I know, I'm sure a lot of you are doing on that, but sometime in supply chain, some people have a tendency to say in 2 weeks or in 3 weeks or in 2 months. And in 2 months today, will still be in 2 months, 1 month later on. So we have this habit of trying to always communicate with very specific dates rather than delay. So of course, in the lead time, we say, okay, there is a 2 months lead time for this or that product. But once it comes to the procurement plan, we really work with dates, very specific dates. And when there is some delays, of course, the date has to be delayed. So it's just a small remark that we should always avoid the in 2 weeks time. You'll get it in 2 weeks. One alternative also, we've all, I think everyone who's been involved in supply chain has always had to manage emergencies because there are some delays. So you always have the opportunities of doing partial shipment or direct deliveries to some specific point. And all this require a very good collaboration and very good communication throughout the supply chain so that you can mobilize your supplier, the clinics which will receive the thing, your transport company or your trucks if it's internally. So again, communication around dates, quantities, and the needs is really key for a successful supply chain, because you'll always have emergency to manage, even in the best plan. It's always needed. So.
Absolutely. So I see no questions. So we will go to a poll, and then Gilles, it will be over to you for the next section. It's a quick poll about backward calculations. If you have done this in your organization, or if you have seen happening this in your organization, we would like to know, because we haven't seen this many times. And that's why we see a lot of delays happening, and we see a lot of miscommunication happening as well. And then people are following up again and again as to where the supplies are, when are they going to come, and all those issues. Yeah. So the poll is on your screen. Please, if all of you can vote. Yeah, a few people left. Yeah, so that's and for Wilson, that's one of the key issues almost I've seen everywhere. And I tell you, one of the reasons why we face a lot of issues at the clearance, because we don't take that time into account when we are counting the days. Number one. Number two, the import authorities, customs, they have a very set rule. They're very set documentations, and we never take those into account as well. And they also keep on changing, by the way. So what needs to be done is that if we have a procurement plan in place and we know that the supplies are going to come, people who are in the contracts department or in the procurement department, they need to find out the latest norms, guidelines of custom clearance, and fill up those forms and find out all those certificates, documentation beforehand, even before the shipment has landed. And that, my friend, I can tell you, 9 out of 10 times is not done. We start working on custom clearance once our shipment is in the inside the terminal sitting and we are paying demurrage charges. That's when we start the custom clearance, and that's almost everywhere it happens. I know some organizations who do it the right way, and that's how I know how it is done. But I've seen this happening a lot of times when shipments are stuck in customs because of issues in clearance. So if you see the results of the poll, uh, most people say they have not seen this happening in their organizations. There are only 2 people who have seen this and are quite common. They say it's quite common in their organization, but majority say it's not really a norm and it doesn't happen. And we will discuss. I will show you more about this backward calculation in the next slides as well.
Yeah, I mean, just to add on this, this backward calculation is very important. It's a very important part of the to understand the procurement plan. But it's a very heavy exercise. It's a very heavy exercise, especially when you have a wide range of product. So that's why one of the slides that Sanjay showed was about highlighting very clearly responsibilities over some product range or type of product in order to be able to really focus on the product, especially that the supply of those products may change. If you are procuring chloroquine or if you're procuring vaccines, the supply scheme is not the same. So of course, the moment that you will have to track in your supply chain, the different event of your supply chain that you need to track to make sure that you are going to deliver the product on time are not the same. But it's a very important exercise, very, very important. And if you don't do it, you are not in a position to proactively communicate about the delay. And what happens, because supply chain is at the end, supply chain is the last function of the organization, the one that delivers the product. All the lack of planning that has taken place ahead are materializing when you deliver the product. So if you've allowed, for instance, various like finance or people who are in charge of quantification to kind of delay the information they give you for you to start planning your procurement. Every time you delay the quantities, every time you delay the specification of the product you need to produce, this will have an impact on the delivery date. So usually the same people who have kind of put you late because they give you the information late are the ones who are going to complain to you because you are bringing the product late. So that's why having this very clear timeline is very, very important for communication and collaboration.
And not just the time, Gilles, the delays in the process also leads to higher price.
Yeah.
So it also needs to be understood that the delays in the process not just results in delay in getting the products, but it also drives the price up, because that means you have less time to get the right amount of suppliers to have a better competition. I don't know if you have heard this statistic somewhere, but statistics say to have the right competition in any bidding process, the required number of bidders should be at least 5. If you have about 5 bidders for any competitive process, you are going to get almost the, you can say, best possible price. More than 5 is good. I mean, it won't really affect the prices. It may not. Less than 5, you will probably get higher prices than what is generally in the market, when there is good competitive bidding happening. Okay, so 5 is the right amount of bidders for any product or any procurement cycle. Okay, do remember that. So Gilles, over to you.
Yeah, but just to add on this, we're not going to. It's not that I don't want to go to Incoterms, but just one last thing before we go to Incoterms is really about also, for as a supplier, what you like is a disorganized client.
Exactly.
So you can negotiate a price for a kind of agreement, but then when there is an emergency on your side as a client, because a clinic need an urgent delivery, you need to have some. Then you go back to your supplier and you say, oh, by the way, we have this agreement. We said you would deliver on that day, but could you do a partial shipment to that clinic? Then the guy say, yes, of course we will do, but the price is not going to be the same. and then you are not in a position to negotiate because you need to have something. So, being disorganized has a cost in the way you're going to negotiate, but it has also a cost for some specific response that you will need to. And I'm sure that although 60%, I think, of people in this call have not seen the backward planning, I'm sure that 100% of you have seen emergency management. When you rush because you receive a phone call and you need to solve an issue, and then you start to call all your suppliers, you need to start to call everyone to kind of solve an issue. This is also a cost. It's a cost on yourself, it's a cost on your organization, on stress, on the time you spend on this. So really, again, we try to advocate for this work. As Sanjay suggests, we should all become the advocate for backward planning and procurement plan. It's a huge investment up ahead, but it is a win in the end. So now we are moving to Incoterms. Incoterms is a difficult subject. Okay, it's often seen as a complicated point, with a lot of different options to choose from. You have some people who are specialists, in Incoterms, and in some organization, you need to be specialist in Incoterms because you have the full opportunities to choose the Incoterms that you want as a procurement officer. In other organizations, usually what they do is they fix 1 or 2 Incoterms for the organization. That's the case, for instance, for the UN. Most of the UN agencies, they are procuring under 1 Incoterm. You don't have no room for negotiation, and that's usually the best. So I just want you to think about some of the first exercise we've done in this course, which were about looking at designing your supply chain with the information flow, the financial flow, and the product flow. Because that's more or less the same kind of information that you will find in the Incoterm to try to segregate where the responsibility of the buyer and the responsibility of the seller are being shifted. And if you keep in mind how you had designed your flows of information in those not small, some of them were big, and anyway, they were all great. In the nice picture you had done to represent the flow of product information and finance, that can already give you some idea about where do the responsibilities over the product is being shifted. And those moments in your supply chain where the responsibility over the product are being shifted are key events. Even those specific events, once you've designed your supply chain, once you've agreed on your Incoterm, there are some of those events that you will have to track to make sure that when you communicate about product availability, when you communicate about the flow that the product are following, those specific events are moments that you will follow. So basically, if you look at this table, which is the summary of all the Incoterms, this is showing you, this is kind of all the product, the flow, the steps that the product are following. If you look on the blue column on the left of the table, you have all the steps that the product is going through once it has been produced. So you have the packaging, which is always the seller responsibility, the seller who is going to package the product for the shipment. And then you have the loading charges, which are taking the cartons, the goods from the seller's platform to put it in the truck, which is going to take it either to the port or directly to the place of delivery. And that specific first operation can be under the responsibility or under the financial responsibility, or even under the
operational
responsibility, financial responsibility of the buyer or the seller. So if you look at this blue column on the left, you have all the activities: packaging, loading charges, delivery to the port or to the place, if it's directly to the place, export duty, if it's an international transport. I mean, in that case for Incoterm, it's always for international transport. So export duty, origin terminal charges, landing on carriage charges, insurance, destination terminal, delivery to destination, import duty, taxes, security, and clearance. So you have all the steps which are required for this particular activity, for the particular shipment. And then you have on the line at the top, the different transit mode, and the different responsibilities of the activity. So if it's X works, for instance, you take the first one, which works for any transit work. X works can work whether you're doing sea or road transport, or whether you're doing air transport. X work is when all the responsibilities is on the buyer. So if you are buying drugs from, let's say, Uganda to a country, let's say you're buying your drugs from, let's say, a neighboring country from Kenya. You're in Uganda, you're buying drugs from Kenya. If it's X work, you will be in charge of sending your trucks or sending a truck to pick the good from the platform. And on the other side, you have the full responsibility, which is for air transport, for any transport mode, the DDP, delivery duty paid. This is when all the responsibilities are on the seller's responsibility. So those two ones are quite simple to understand because they are the extreme one. But in the middle, you have all kinds of different responsibilities. You can see, for instance, if you look at sea inland transport, for instance, if we take the one which is CIF, which is very often used also, where you have the specific land of insurance. Where does the insurance stop? So, you have all these things about when the goods are being loaded on the boat, or when they are not being loaded on the boat. So the difference, for instance, between CIF and CPT, for instance, is just the insurance. Who is in charge of the insurance? If, for instance, the product fall when it is being carried down on the deck of the ship, who is going to be in charge, responsible for the goods? So I don't want to go too much into detail for this. The only thing I want to insist on is that, let's go back to the, thank you, Sanjay. The only thing I really want to insist on is that you have to understand and compare this with the flow that you've done at the beginning. It is very much directly linked to your operational flow in country. And Incoterm is not that complicated. And once you've chosen the one which are the best for your country, it's very easy to implement. I don't know if we can hear from various countries here. I mean, Ethiopia, Cameroon, any country someone who wants to tell us about what Incoterms they are using in their organization and what is their experience of it. Okay, I know Incoterm is not the most sexy topics. We have to recognize that, but it is an important one, and it helps really structure the mindset of over your supply chain. Here in this slide, I mean, please feel free to intervene on this one if you want to share some experience. We have some of those most used Incoterms. So as we said, the X work one, as you see, the X works one, everything is under the responsibility of the buyer. So the buyer is responsible for everything. Once he has negotiated the price with the supplier, the price is negotiated that I will come and pick everything on your platform. On the other side, DDP, delivery duty paid, it's everything is on the charge of the seller. The seller is in charge of it. This one is the most, I would say, the most comfortable one, because particularly in this one, if you have issue at clearance and custom clearance, it's the most comfortable one for the buyer. If you are the buyer, the most comfortable one is DDP. because you don't have to worry about custom clearance, you don't have to worry about transport, you don't have to worry about insurance. Everything is brought at your doorstep. So it's much, much easier. But for instance, a lot of, for instance, if you are, let's say, in Ethiopia, for instance, some countries, some supplier who don't have experience of Ethiopia will be very cold to take responsibility for doing DDP in a country where they don't have, where they're not used to work. And the same if you are in Ethiopia and you want to ship goods to, let's say, Cameroon, you may not want to send them as DDP because you know you will really struggle to have control over clearance in the country, unless you find a good clearing agent who can do that for you. And the last one here is CIF. You know, it's for the sea freight. You know, where you can see you have the insurance now, which change. And while you are taking, you know, while the seller is responsible for insuring the product, the cost are still, the risks are still borne by the buyer. It's also within Incoterm, you also have the idea of when do you own the product. It's also the transfer of ownership. So when do I start to own the product? So I can be owning the product, like for instance in CIF, while I'm not responsible for it. You know, so the product belongs to me, but the responsibility is still under the supplier responsibility. Any comment?
Maybe if someone is thinking about a comment, let me also put a few things in context in why we are talking about Incoterms in a procurement lesson. Some of you might think that why are we talking Incoterms here? We should be talking it under transportation, for example. The reason we are talking about it in procurement, because the prices that you receive from your suppliers are dependent on the Incoterms that you will specify in your tender documents. So if you will ask your suppliers that, okay, I want, let's take the example, I want 2 million doses of COVID vaccines, DAP or DDP or X-Works, the prices that you will receive would be entirely different. You cannot compare the X-Works price that you receive with a DAP price or a DDP price. They're going to be different. So another learning from this is whenever if you are doing a price analysis of your past procurement history or your analysis of prices from past procurements, make sure that you're comparing across same Incoterms. If you take one price at X Works and the other price at another Incoterm, you're going to be confused and it will be a misled analysis. Okay, so you need to compare apples to apples as well. Okay, so the price depends on what Incoterm are you going to use. Okay, sometimes in your tender documents, I've seen this happening. Initially, the prices are always asked for X Works, so that you only get to see the prices of what are the prices at the seller's doorstep. Some organizations like probably UNFPA have, they may ask only X Works prices because they have a freight forwarding agent, a contract with a freight forwarding agent. So there is one price that they get from the supplier. Then there is another price or a contract that they will have with the freight forwarding agent who will pick it up from the seller's warehouse and then bring it to whichever country or warehouse it is required. Okay, so that's the reason why we're talking about Incoterms. Moving quickly onto the quiz. So this is a fictional EMSA is a central medical store, contracted a manufacturer to supply 2 million doses of COVID vaccines. The price in the contract has been derived based on the following Incoterm. DAP, the location being EMSA's central warehouse. There are two questions for you coming on your screen now. Number one, who is responsible to pay for import duties? and who bears the risk of the supply while the shipment is in transit? Okay, these are the two questions for you. Look at them while I ask Barbara if she's ready now to present the lead time calculator, or would she want me to go ahead with the session and then she presents it after I present the procurement plan template. Barbara, if you can speak, that would be great.
Okay, no problem. I can present that because it's very quick. It's not something difficult. So can you share with me your?
Yeah, I will. I'm just giving you the access now. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Can we just close the response to the quiz first, so that
yeah,
people can
absolutely. Barbara, you should be able to share your screen now.
Okay. Wait a second.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, so this is the page where UNFPA staff usually have access to the lead time calculator. So my password and name are already there. So it's only for UNFPA staff. So I'm gonna log in and try to do an exercise, a simple exercise, because the lead time for us started from the lead time started from the when the PO is issuing and we send it to the suppliers. So this is at that time the lead time is started. So right now I'm gonna try to, so I have to select the country, for example, Haiti. And let's say that I want to have something like we want to order condoms. Okay, I will say that from 3 months now, we want to have a stock. But usually what happened, you will see that later. I'm choosing the contraceptives. And for this one, it should be male condoms. Okay, and for this field, the items is a specific condoms. So usually we choose the standard for 53 mm. It's the standard, it's okay. Natural standard, okay. And for those contraceptives, we don't usually have them in stock. So C, I'm choosing the shipping method, it's by C, which is more cheaper, but at the same time, it might take a while to arrive within the country, but we don't have other choice because of the quantity of the condoms. This is why when you were talking about the planning, which is very important, because we need to check our stock to see through the quantification forecasting exercise when we will need them, so we can raise our requisition to HQ so they can proceed. So in this tool also, they said that order from stock if possible. But usually for those type of contraceptives, they don't have them in stock. It's only for the reproductive health commodity kits. We usually have them in stock, we pre-positioning them. So I will add to calculation for the condoms, and you will see for the condoms, the lead times is 35 weeks max. But usually it might take longer, since that sometimes we have problem with customs. So it might take longer, so the product can be delivered to the facilities. And when it arrives in the country, we have a broker that is doing the processing to custom clear the goods. But most of the time, for those particular type of commodities, it takes longer, like the maximum 35 weeks. Yes, so this is the tool that we are using. And as I was saying, it is when the field like saying order from stock, if possible, it's only for the kits that you sometimes we pre-positioning, and it doesn't take that much. Maybe it might take like 3 to 5 weeks to arrive, but it doesn't take long. And sometimes for some kits, they have to ship them by air, so we receive them quickly. But for those like condoms or medroxyprogesterone, so it take longer, and you can see from that tool. So this is very quick, very easy. So usually we do that when we want to know when we will have to plan to receive a product. So it's only UNFPA using that kind of tool. So it's over. So I don't have much things to add.
Thank you so much, Barbara. It was really nice of you to share it with everyone. I'll get back to some comments on the tool, but let me share the result of the quiz. So let me look at DAP now very quickly. So the first question was, who is responsible to pay for import duties and clearance? So this is DAP here. So if you look at import duties and clearance, it's actually the buyer who's responsible to pay for them. So in this case, it will be EMSA and not the supplier. Okay. So there's the reason of this quiz was just to show you that Incoterms, if you are not familiar with, you really need to understand the costs, who pays, who doesn't pay, the risk, and at what point. So that's very important. The second was who bears the risk. Okay. So if we see here, in DAP, the risk, while is in transit, it is by the seller, and most of you got it right here. 10 people have said it's a supplier, and it is right. Okay, so you need to be aware of these things when you are creating your contracts, purchase orders, and even before that when you're writing your tender documents, because you cannot change Incoterms after you have done your tenders. So you need to be very mindful of that even while you're writing your tender document. So that's why we're showing Incoterms at this stage. Quickly moving on to what Barbara showed us. If you notice, there were a few key things. She started with actually a very brief element of supply plan. When are the products required? Okay, so she added that date first. Okay, that's when the calculation began. The second thing was, if you noted in the lead time calculation, there were several steps given: order processing, manufacturing, inspection, sampling, testing, and transportation. Okay, order processing is probably under which we have procurement involved as well. The reason why UNFPA can do it so fast, because they have framework agreements. And Barbara, tell me if you have this range of 13 to 35 weeks. Has it ever happened that it can also go beyond that time in some circumstances, when, let's say, the agreements may have come to close or something, or is it always that you receive between that time period which has been showed to you in this calculator?
No, it's not. It is in the perfect world, because sometimes we have some delay. For example, with the vessels, we currently have a problem, an issue. So they have booked in a vessel, but after they said that they cannot find, I don't know what happened, like order, maybe organization, or even because sometimes they do that together, the agency, UN agencies, but it's very difficult to find. We have this problem right now. So this is not, it's in the perfect world, it happened like that, but most of the time it's beyond of that.
Yeah. So that's what I wanted to point out, that it's showing you a range, because sometimes things may change when you're doing this calculation. But the reason why you must still do it, so that you know when and how to manage those issues. And this is the same concept that we're going to show you in this procurement plan template. It's a simple template. I'm not going to take too much of time on this, because you can understand it by yourself as well. Let me quickly share this template on screen, and then we will go through it. The concept that the tool that Barbara showed us, it's the same concept that we're using in this tool as well. Okay. Sorry, I'm showing the same screen again. Okay, here we are. Okay, so in this tool, we have created a scenario first. If you remember District X, we have a budget here. We have number of products. I mean, here just for the learning example, the product can be 500 as well. Okay, here there are some codes written. ICB is International Competitive Bidding. National bidding, single sourcing. Single sourcing means when you only have one supplier for a product, and it's mostly in the case of patented products. You only have one supplier. You can't do anything else. I'm taking examples of 3 products. You remember ciprofloxacin, medroxyprogesterone, artemethyl lumefantrine. Okay, we use the 3 products in the forecasting exercise as well. Now we need to purchase these quantities here for these products. We know the X works price for these products. Remember the Incoterms, we're using the X works price here. Okay, we know the total price, we know who is funding it, we also know who's managing this. For example, I've just taken 3 names from our team. So we know in this procurement plan who's managing it. Okay, so going back to this first section again, this is the first section. This is the description of the product, and this is coming from the supply plan. You know from the supply plan what is the unit of measure. If you remember Barbara's tool, it also talked about unit of measure. It said 144 condom pieces. It's not talking about one condom piece. It's talking about 144 piece. That's the unit of measure if you're going to buy condom, because in a secondary pack of condom, there are 144 pieces. Okay. Here also we talk about secondary packaging. Okay. So this is the product description, which is the first section. The second section is management. Okay. In the management section, we talk about where the money is coming from, who's the team, and who's the accountable person. Okay, who's managing this product or a segment of product. The third section is transport and clearance. The fourth section is procurement. And the fifth section is supplier monitoring and payment. Okay, so I've created 5 sections in this procurement plan. You can also add another section, which is risk and mitigation. Okay, now why transport and clearance is first? You may ask that the procurement process has not started. Why are we talking about transport and clearance first? Because if you remember, we're talking about a backward calculation. So the first thing is, when do we need it at the central warehouse? You can also say, when do we need it at a district warehouse or a hospital, for example. Okay. Now we're going backward. Number of days from the port to the warehouse. Number of days in custom clearance, and this date may vary. This number of days may vary. Okay. Then based on this date and 15 days in between, we should know that when should the product arrive in the country port. Then we're talking about what is the mode of transport and what is the estimated supplier lead time. Now supplier lead time is mostly the time taken for manufacturing to receipt at the destination port. This is the manufacturing time. It was also in Barbara's lead time calculation too. Okay, so estimated supplier lead time, we put it here. Okay, now when we go to the procurement process, okay, this 180 days and this date, it will correspond to this, it should correspond to this particular date when the PO is approved and issued. Okay, but let's again go to the backward calculation. Okay, so we had the procurement method ICB, NCB. Okay, so NCB is taking less time. If you see here, 90 days, because it's a national competitive bidding, it's international bidding, so it's taking 180 days for the supplier to manufacture and then come to your country. Okay, then in the procurement process, we start with specification writing, approval of those specifications, bids are advertised. You know, but it will take 30 days for you to keep those bids in advertisement. You receive the quotations. You also respond to queries. you complete the technical evaluation, financial evaluation, bid reports, contract is approved and signed, and purchase orders approved and issued. Now on top, you see I've written the number of days for each of these process here. So how many days does it take to get the bid approved, for example, to get it advertised? How many days would you take to receive the quotation? How many days would you take to evaluate the technical bids, financial bids, and these days may vary again. Okay. Now, if you see the dates here, this particular date, PO approved and issued. If I look at whatever date is being put here, which is 9th of July 2018. If your PO is approved at this date, okay, only then your target arrival in the country would be this, which is 5th of January 2019. Okay, so if you look at the formula here, it says M9, M is this target receipt at central warehouse. Okay, this is from this particular anyways, so this is using the calculation of M9, N and O. This is from this, but what I'm trying to say is 180 days from this day, contract PO approved and issued is actually this target arrival in country, because this is 180 days from this time. Okay, so you can also reverse it if you want, but just because I wanted to show you the procurement process as well, it's in the straight line, but you can reverse this as well. Okay, so that's why if you see the boxes here, the key indicators that you need to take care of is when do you need the products at a central warehouse, what is the target arrival in country, because you need to go for custom clearance, pay for those taxes, and whoever is paying for those taxes, submit those documents. Then the two important dates are when your PO should be approved and issued, and based on that, when should you start your specification and bid writing process. Okay, so now if you look at it, if you want the products by this date, 20th of January 2019, your procurement process should actually start 17th of April 2018. So if you want the products in 2019 in January, your process should start in April 2018. So that's what the backward calculation is talking about. Okay, so we had calculated all the various days which are involved in transport, clearance, and the entire procurement process, so that we know when should we start this entire process. So this process helps you understand all the steps, the amount of time does it take, and when should you expect the suppliers to come in the country, and if that matches the needs of the facilities or the and the warehouses that you are supporting. Okay, so this is a very simple tool that you can use, and this tool is inspired by the lead calculator that Barbara showed, and I've seen similar tools being used at UNDP, UNICEF, and other global organizations. Okay, you can also modify this tool based on your own requirements. It's a very simple tool. You just need to make sure that your dates are linked with each other, so that even if you change one date, okay, everything will change. Okay, so that you know that if one date changes, how will it affect your entire sheet. Okay, so if you see here, all the dates are linked to another cell with calculations. Okay, so that if you change one date, everything else will change as well. Okay, the final section is supplier monitoring and payment, which is very important. Sometimes we forget that, okay, the products have started to arrive, but there are delays in paying the supplier as well. Okay, if you delay in paying a supplier, their performance may also decrease over a period of time. So you also need to manage this process as well, which is of supplier monitoring and payment. Okay, so this is a very simple procurement planning tool, which I've seen being used in several places. You can also use it for your own organization. You can do it by product category. You can create different sheets for different product categories. Okay, and then follow this process to arrive at the date when you should start your procurement. and to know that when are you expecting those products at your country port or at the central warehouse. Okay, so this is I'll just end this and I'll go back to the session, and if there are any questions,
there is a question from Kenfrey about the risk which are linked to the procurement, and yes, you are very right, Kenfrey. It's there's a lot of risks when you're doing such a complete plan. Just a few things to mention on that. One of the key risks that we experience is having the right information at the right moment. So it's mostly the internal risk. How you're going to be able to have the right quantities, the right specification from your own internal partner at the right time to be able to start the procurement plan. So that's what this date, but when you need to have the quantity, when you need to have the specification of the product is very important, because unless you have that, you cannot place the order. So that's a huge risk in any organization, because usually you always get the quantities and the specification very late. You also have to understand that the risk is not the same depending on if it's a first order for a company or if it's just a routine reordering of the procurement of the supplier of a product which is routinely ordered. Now the second question you've asked, I mean, there are other risks, of course, which are external, which are all the risks linked to transportation, delay at custom, payment delay, production delay. But all this, if you track the dates that Sanjay have put, are risks that you kind of manage and mitigate by anticipating any delay in meeting those dates, which are so important. So that's why the dates itself are very important. Now the other point you ask to Barbara Kenfrey, that one, a couple of years of protection for male condom is, how is it moving from 120 to 144? I'm not a specialist on that. Maybe Barbara, you have a response to give to Kenfrey. Otherwise, I'm sure in this noble group, we will have a lot of expertise to respond to this. Barbara, any suggestion on that?
Let me see. Maybe I will reply later. For male condom, why is the, so I don't know. I cannot reply to that because since I've been working with the UNFPA, it's always 144. So I don't know.
Yeah, no problem with that. Kenfrey, there are two different concepts that you're mixing together. So CYP suggests that 120 condoms are needed for a couple. Now, it doesn't mean that a secondary pack should have 120 condoms, because you are not giving a couple a secondary pack at once. Think about it. You are giving a couple a primary pack, which may have 3 condoms, 1 condom, 10 condoms at the most. You're not giving them 120 condoms at once. 144 is the standard unit of measure to pack condoms together based on certain factors that the manufacturers and WHO and other organizations may have come up with. Okay, so there are two different concepts. Don't confuse between them. One is from the perspective of treatment protocol, or in this case, it's not a treatment, but it's use protocol. The other is from the perspective of packaging and shipping. Okay, so there are two different concepts. Coming to what's on the screen. So once you prepare your procurement plans and your timelines, you have figured it out, you can also plot them in some sort of a graph. So I'll just, I'm showing you this because I was, once I was working with a UN organization as a consultant, and we were doing these exercises. And they came to me with the problem saying that, we have plotted all these dates and it is very good, we can follow it up. But, it's not on our faces so that we can track it very proactively. So what we did was we created this kind of a timeline and we printed this on a very big chart. So it was a very big chart which they posted on their office wall for that particular procurement period. So now everyone in the office knew that when the document has to be prepared, when the bid document is to be prepared, when the responses are being received, when the inspection has to be done, and everyone was managing their time as well. So this is a template that I've shared with you as well. You can actually add your own milestones here. You can add your own dates here, and this graphic will change automatically. And then you can take this and you can print it in a big paper, or you can print it in a small paper, put it in your shelves or put it in your office so that everyone can see the timelines. Okay. So these are the two templates that I've provided as part of this procurement planning lesson. Going back to our session now. So there is a quick poll. I'm launching it, but I will keep on moving with the session. I've launched it now. Please do take a look on if procurement plan is developed in an organization or not. Okay. But let me quickly show you the last few slides. Again, this slide is talking about these different sections in a procurement plan. Like I said, the other sections can be risk management. You can also create sections as per product segments, or if you have any other categories which are used in organizations, you can also add them into your procurement plans. This I've already showed you. Last, if you have any question and answers, or otherwise, then we'll move on to the issue of team blue versus team red, which is the final order of business for today's session. I'm seeing responses that majority of participants are saying procurement plan is developed in an Excel file. You can see the results here. Some are saying there's online software as well. One person has said they don't develop procurement plan in the organization that they work in. Okay, so it's a mixed pot. As we move along with technology, you will see that more and more these plans will be developed in softwares, which is good. But the reason why we still show you these Excels, that you can understand the logic behind it. Okay, so I'm stopping these results now. And the last order of business that we have is the team competition rule for this particular week, which is week 3. Now, the reason why we are talking about this, and Gilles, I will come to you as well with this as well, is because Team Red has won last 2 weeks, as you know, and congratulations to Team Red. They have been proactively doing the course, but we also don't want to discount the fact that there are several members of Team Blue who are also doing very well. And in fact, in week 2, more number of Team Blue members had actually outscored Team Red members. And that's a fact. So Team Red, the reason that Team Red is winning is because more people in Team Red are actually doing the course, which is on one side, it's a good thing. But from Team Blue's perspective, there are a few people who are not doing the course, and that's resulting in Team Blue being behind in the learning weeks. Okay, but having said that, there are some people in Team Blue, and rather 5 or 6 people in Team Blue, who are consistently outscoring everyone in Team Red. Okay, so Gilles and I discussed a lot this week when we were putting out the results for last week, and you saw there was a slight delay in that because of this deliberation. That how do we make sure that the rules, although we created these rules at the beginning, but there's a level playing field for everyone, so that Team Blue also has a chance to win. Right now, if we go like this, Team Blue doesn't have a chance to win. It will be Team Red, because the people who are behind, they will not be able to contribute to Team Blue's score in a way so that Team Blue can come up in the next 2 learning weeks. Okay, so we have put 2 options after thinking a lot that how can these options be still in a way that Team Red can still win, but can create a level playing field where both teams can win in this particular week, in week 3. So there are 2 options that we are proposing, but we are open to other options as well. Option 1, one member from Team Red can move to Team Blue voluntarily. I mean, we are not saying which member. It has to be someone voluntarily going from one team to the other. Option 2 is we only calculate the team score based on the top 10 people on the leaderboard. So whoever is in the top 10 of individual leaderboard, then we will decide out of those 10 people who represent team red and team blue, and then we'll combine their scores, and then whoever wins from that, we will categorize that team as the winner. These are two options we present. Gilles, over to you. And then if there are other options that you can think of where we can create a level playing field for both teams, we are all ears. Gilles, over to you.
Nothing much to add to what you've said. I think yes, we need to find a way that reflects, that is fair. So again, nobody wants to win or lose unfairly. And what has happened, yes, we did not anticipate that maybe there would be some people who would not take the course, at least not in the following the time frame of the course, particularly in one team, more in one team than in the other. So of course it's unfair. So I don't know if there are any other suggestions which are here. If there is someone who wants to move from the option one, to follow the option one and say, okay, he wants to move to blue rather than to red or anything else. Nothing much to add at this stage, but any other option, any other suggestion are highly welcome. I think we try to keep the morale and do that as a fair way.
Yeah, and I can tell everyone who's in team red that even if we choose any of the options, there is a very high possibility that team red will still win. But I am very happy that there are several members of team blue who are really doing well in the course, and we don't want that their morale be down because their team can't win despite them being on top of the leaderboard without the additional points that the team red is getting. So just to prove the point, let me quickly go to one of the slides which we showed in the beginning. So if you see this slide here, this is the top 10 today, and without the additional 40 points each team red members have been given, there are still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people of team red in top 10. That tells you that how serious team blue members are, and because of a few people who have not been doing their courses, it has become a bit unfair for them. Okay, so I'll get back to this slide. So you can still think about it. We still have a few days to go in week 3, but we will again deliberate at the end of week 3, and then we'll try to, if no one voluntarily moves from team red to team blue, then we'll find a way where we change the rules slightly so that there's a level playing field for both teams, so that at least team blue has a chance to win the learning week. Okay.
Maybe we can open a discussion on this.
Sure.
If,
yeah, we can do that. We'll open a discussion for that tomorrow, and then everyone, team red, team blue, everyone should respond to that, and then we can decide. Okay. If there are any other questions that you want to ask at this point, please do that. This is the end of the session for today. We wish you all the best for this week. And we look forward to hearing from you on the weekly assignment for Saturday as well. Please do join everyone so that you can have a very productive discussion on Saturday as well. If there are no other questions, then we close the session, Gilles.
Yeah, I think we can close the section. Thank you everyone. Thank you for all your good participation, questions. If we've not answered all the questions, maybe Kemfrey, we've not exhausted your question about the risks that you've asked. So maybe that's something we can follow up on the Hive in writing and try to brainstorm about what are all the risks linked to the procurement. But thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, and keep the good work carrying on. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Stay safe.